In this video, we are going to be discovering an amazing breed, the amazing Rottweiler. We're going to be breaking down categories such as family, health, temperament, history, trainability, workability, protection, and so much more, and ultimately answer that burning question you have. Is the Rottweiler right for you and your family? Let's get into it. If you ask me, if you wanted me to draw a picture for you what a Rottweiler looks like, we're talking about a big, meaty, thick bone, dense, heavyweight contender with a big old blockhead and, you know, the traditional coloring, which we're going to get into in a minute. But let's give you some of the actual facts. So at the withers, which is right here between the shoulder blades, the males can get anywhere from 24 to 27 inches tall, where the females can go 22 to 25 inches. So we're definitely considering a medium to large, even an XL large breed, depending upon your perspective. Weight, females 80 to 100, 105 pounds. Males, we're talking 95 pounds up to 135 pounds, and maybe even more. You've seen some big boys and girls out there. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is their coat coloring. So we're talking about primarily black, but with 3 different types of brown, classified as rust, mahogany, or tan, as in black and tan. So he's a great example, Mr. Thor, who I'm going to put into heel position right now. Thor, here, finish. Perfect, Bubba. We need you on camera looking good. You're gonna see those brown markings, in his case, a rust color, on the feet, on the chest, on the neck, on the cheeks, and right here above the eyes, like his eyebrows, which is super cool. Definitely a hallmark sign of a Rottweiler. And now this is where things get interesting. Over in Germany or over in Europe, they're trying to stay true to the traditions of the Rottweiler, and you're definitely seeing these cool markings. In America, you could argue that maybe the Rottweiler is being watered down or taken in a slightly different direction, so it's not uncommon to come across a Rottweiler that does not have those markings along the eyebrows. Doesn't mean it's a bad dog, just something to pay attention to. One more thing that might separate America from Germany or Europe is the tail docking. So, do you remember if Thor has a tail or not? Let's take a look. So Thor has his tail docked from shortly after birth. That's something you will see traditionally happen in America. Doesn't mean it has to happen, it's user's choice, but over in Europe and over in Germany, for whatever the reasons are, maybe to stick to some traditionalism or because they feel bad for the dog, they are not docking the tail traditionally. Now, another thing to pay attention to are the ears. Like many badass dogs you consider XL bullies, Cane Corsos, Presa Canarios, you might see those ears being cropped. In fact, majority of the times you will see that. Not with the Rottweiler. It is not commonplace to crop the ears. The next thing to talk about is the coat. As far as the coat, we got the colors covered, but let's talk about the thickness of the coat. Generally speaking, AKC is going to recognize the Rottweiler with a short coat, very short coat, but this guy here, there are some lines out there. You could consider it a genetic default, if you will. Thicker, longer hair. In this case, right here, we're talking about 1 inch plus thick hair. That doesn't mean he's a bad dog. It just might mean he wouldn't do so great in, say, AKC. If you were to try to show him, he would probably be disqualified because that coat's a little longer than what they might accept. One final thing to note, if you notice here, he's got dew claws on the rear paws, atypical also. A lot of dogs are born with dew claws in the front and the back, and those things usually get cut off at birth because they're just not needed anymore. The only thing those dew claws will do on the rear legs of a dog like this is get caught up in something, maybe jumping in and out of a car. They can get hung up, and if they tear, it can be very painful for a dog, so they're typically removed shortly after birth. He's ready to get him removed, just waiting for an opportune time. Say if he were to get snipped or had to go in for surgery of some kind, he's gonna go ahead and get those dew claws taken off. So other than that, Thor's a beautiful dog. I think a pretty good representation of the breed. He's a young boy. He's still got to grow into all that extra skin and be that big, bad Rottweiler that we're all aware of. People stop and stare when a Rottweiler appears on the scene. Whether that's you taking your dog to the dog park or you rolling up on a crime scene to deploy a police Rottweiler to handle business. This large working dog, with its striking black-brown markings, muscular frame, and big blocky head, exudes strength and self-confidence. But where did this impressive breed come from? In this section, we're going to explore the fascinating history of the Rottweiler. Now, the Rottweiler's roots trace back all the way to ancient Rome over 2,000 years ago. These dogs are descendants of the drover dogs that accompanied the Roman legions as they marched across the Alps. Now, these rugged drover canines were essential for herding cattle and protecting the soldiers' food supplies during long campaigns. However, after the collapse of the Roman Empire, these drover dogs were left behind in the Roman provinces, particularly an area known as Rottweil, Germany. There they interbred with the local dogs, and the breed we know today began to take shape. Now, Rottweil is a town in southwest Germany known for its red roof tiles, and it eventually lent its name to the actual dog breed, the Rottweiler. Now, in the town of Rottweil, these Roman drover dogs found a new role. They became indispensable to butchers, which were herding livestock to market and pulling carts loaded with meat. Known as the Rottweiler Metzgerhund, or translated as the butcher's dog of Rottweil, they also guarded the butcher's earnings, often carrying purses filled with money around the dog's necks. We're going going back, talking about the FAFO back in the day. Around and find out if you try to take that butcher's money off the Rottweiler's necks. I wouldn't want to play that game. However, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s and 1800s, the need for these drover dogs diminished as railroads became the primary means of transporting livestock. This led to a decline in the Rottweiler population. However, the breed's resilience and ability to do other things other than just guarding livestock shone through as it found new roles in the early 20th century. It's in the late 1800s and early 1900s when the Rottweilers experienced a revival when they were employed as police and military dogs. Their strength, intelligence, and protective nature made them ideal for various roles, including as messengers, ambulance dogs, and guard dogs during World Wars I and II. Now, the first Rottweiler club in Germany, the Deutscher Rottweiler Club, or DRK, was founded in 1907, followed by the SDRK. Now, these clubs eventually merged to form the ADRK in 1921, which is still, and now, the recognized parent club for the breed worldwide. In 1931, the American Kennel Club, or AKC, officially recognized the Rottweiler, and the breed quickly began to gain popularity in the United States. However, it wasn't until 1973 when the American Rottweiler Club, or ARC, was formed, and their popularity soared from there. I think it's worth mentioning and diving a little deeper when it comes to the Rottweiler's use in law enforcement. Now, the breed was used in the US and Europe in the 1900s, but became very popular with police departments in the 70s and 80s. We specifically used them in the City of Miami Police Department, and they were definitely a force to be reckoned with. There are plenty of police canine stories of their literal bone-crushing power when discussing their ability to apprehend suspects on the street. Now, due to the severity of their bites, their lack of stamina, and the inability to stay focused on tasks for a longer period of time led to their eventual replacement in the United States. We're talking late 80s, early 90s, with more athletic, less bulky, and more focused and harder working breeds, such as the German Shepherd, Belgian Malinois, and Dutch Shepherd. Now, those dogs are still a force to be reckoned with, but they're less likely to break bones when on the bite. Though it's rare to find a police canine Rottweiler in the States today, they are still used in other parts of the world, including Western Europe, Eastern Europe, South America, and Asia. And overall, the Rottweiler is definitely an imposing figure, both historically and present day. Now, here's something I find very interesting about the Rottweiler. Even if you've never met one in person, chances are if you saw one, you'd know exactly what it is. Now, why is that? I think they're just unmistakable. There's nothing else really looks like them. They're very imposing. And more importantly, I think it's because you see them in a lot of movies for the past several decades and even video games. Now, some of the movies that you might recall are Lethal Weapon around 1992, 1993. Lethal Weapon 3, we got Mel Gibson actually on all fours going face to face with a badass Rottweiler, and he eventually makes friends with him. Moving on, there's a scene from The Dark Knight circa 2008 where Heath Ledger's playing the Joker, being protected by 3 Rottweilers, making an imposing presence for even the Batman himself. Also, probably the most iconic Rottweiler scene that comes to mind, we're talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, where the principal tries to break into Ferris Bueller's home and gets his ass handed to him, not once, but twice, by the loving Rottweiler. And finally, probably one of the most recent instances of a Rottweiler appearing in pop culture is Grand Theft Auto 5. You already know what I'm talking about. There's an actual character named Chop. It's a Rottweiler used by one of the characters in the actual video game. And yes, even in the video game, that Rottweiler's handling business with folks on the street. Now it's time to talk about, is the Rottweiler going to be a great addition to your family? Maybe you got little ones at home, or maybe you're planning to have little ones in the future. So we got to plan ahead and ask ourselves, is the Rottweiler going to be good with the little ones? And the answer, in short, yes, they're going to make great family pets if you get proper training and if you get proper socialization. So generally speaking, these dogs are goofballs. They're going to love your whole family. They're going to love the little ones and play and play and play. But because they're so fun and because they're so jovial and have all that crazy energy when they're being played with in the living room, or when the doorbell rings and Aunt Betty comes over, you can have an 80 to 130 plus pound dog that can take people out. We're talking about take your knees out, take Aunt Betty to the floor and break her hip, and that's not going to be great for Thanksgiving Day dinner if you're in the ER with Aunt Betty. So with proper training, we can calm that motor down. You can have an amazing family dog. Now, what about the second thing, socialization? So what are we talking about? These are natural protectors. Now, as natural protectors, the concern is that when that doorbell rings, they're going to run over and put on a big show. Yes, we want that for our family. Yeah, but what if it's just Uncle Jeff that only comes over a few times a year for those special celebrations like Easter, Christmas, you name it? Problem is, if Uncle Jeff's coming over and he's a little sauced up and it's 2 or 3 in the morning after hitting the bar with the boys, your Rottweiler, if not properly socialized, might take a piece of Uncle Jeff's ass with him, and we gotta be careful of that. So we wanna make sure that they know that not everybody that comes over to your house is a stranger danger. 99.9% of the time, it's the mailman, it's the milkman, it's Uncle Jeff, it's Aunt Betty, and we don't need the Rottweiler taking them out. We wanna make sure they understand proper training and socialization, and if you do that, amazing dogs. If you don't do that, you got a liability on your hands. Pretty much that goes with any large protective breed. Now, if you're wondering how you can raise and train your Rottweiler or any other dog breed to be the best that they can be, I highly recommend you check out DIYcanine.com for all your training needs. We're gonna help you raise and train the perfect dog or puppy, the best dog you could ever ask for, and help you take your dog from 0 to hero. Finish. Now let's talk about the practicality of the Rottweiler. Really two things to think about, the breed as it is and also their size. So I know Garrett said that they could make an okay apartment dog. The problem is if you're trying to apply for an apartment or an HOA, they're gonna say, what kind of dog do you got? Rottweiler? Very much a breed restricted dog on many breed restricted lists. I didn't make up the rules, don't blame me. It just so happens to be the case. Same thing when it comes to applying maybe for homeowners insurance and things like that. They go, oh, you got a Rottweiler. Could be considered a quote dangerous dog. So think about that. Now also the next thing about practicality, it's just their sheer size, folks. This is not the type of dog that you want to go taking on 5 and 10 mile runs with you. They're not built for that. They're big and bad, and he's probably, I don't know, 80, 85 pounds. And as I get older, that 85 pounds gets heavier and heavier. And just loading him up in the vehicle today to get him to come into target was a pain in the butt. He's only going to get bigger from here. Okay, climb. So that's why we're teaching him how to climb ladders, so he can learn how to climb his big fat ass up in the truck, so my fat ass doesn't have to lift him up and break my back. But I'm being serious, folks. You have to think about how big is your place that you live? What kind of car are you gonna get if you're gonna tote him around? You want that lifted pickup truck? Be prepared to train your dog to climb a ladder or a ramp, but be prepared to lift them up and put them in. You also gotta think about how do you get them out without hurting themselves, their shoulders and their hips, etc. These dogs are not built to be jumping out of 6-foot lifted trucks, etc. like that. So think about that, how they're gonna affect your life, not just now, but 8, 10, 12 years into the future, because we know they're gonna live that long or longer. All right, now let's talk about the temperament of the amazing Rottweiler. Freak. So him and Xena are gonna run around and be crazy things. He loves Xena, he plays nice, you'll see him in the background. His temperament's amazing, but we got to him at a young age. Highly social, great with kids, great with other dogs. We're gonna keep a close eye on that. As he becomes a stronger, more dominant alpha type of dog, we might have to keep him in check and let him know, don't dominate other dogs, don't be mean. And again, she's a female. What happens when he's fully grown, full of testosterone, and he meets another fully grown, testosterone-filled male? We got to keep a close eye on that. So generally speaking, their temperament is kind of funny in that they are complete goofballs with their family. They're like a golden retriever, except they don't look like one. They got the shorter hair, they're black, but they're absolute goofballs. They're going to roll around on the ground, they're going to want their tummy rubbed, their butt scratched, all of that good stuff, but then boom, knock at the door, stranger walking by your house, and that activation may come on where their protective instincts come into play, and you can have a very strong, very dominant dog. So their temperament is, generally speaking, a goofball, but also protective. And then we also, when we talk about trainability and workability next, we're going to talk a little bit about that Rottweiler ADD. And now we're going to talk about the workability of the Rottweiler, which we determine to be basically their endurance. How long can they focus? How much energy do they have in the tank? A Malinois is going to have a 10 out of 10, but when it comes to the Rottweiler, they're big, they're tank, they're heavy, they have that black coat. So if you're anywhere where the sun is shining and it's hot outside and it's humid, they're going to gas out pretty quickly. Also, they got a little bit of that doggy ADD built in, so as you're working them, the more tired they get, the more they're going to lose focus. I mean, that's the case with any dog, but they're going to lose focus a little bit quicker than some of those well-known working lines, such as working line German Shepherds, Dutch Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, even a GSP or a field lab. The Rottweiler is going to gas out a little bit faster and check out a little bit sooner, but they're going to be a ball of fire for that first 10 or 15 minutes as you're training them. So just think about that. When you get this dog, you got to kind of condense those training sessions down a little bit tighter. As soon as their belly's full, they're pretty much done with training. And again, that's the same with every dog, but they're going to run out of that gas a little bit sooner than some of the other higher drive dogs. All right, folks, now we're going to talk about the trainability of the Rottweiler. Simply put, the Rottweiler is a very, very smart dog, very intelligent, capable of doing just about anything you want to do with them, whether that's protection, sports, obedience, agility, you name it. The reason they're able to do that for the most part is because they're little piggly wigglies. They got that high food drive for the most part. They also have toy drive, and it's going to help take you you a very long way. But the problem is they're so smart, they're so big and powerful that they can also be a little stubborn. And so your food will only take you so far. And so that's why we encourage you, if you have a power breed like this, that you use balance training, meaning you can use food to show them what you want, but you also have to use tools and proper training such as leashes, prong collars, e-collars to reinforce the rules. Slower here so that they listen to you every time, whether you have food on you or not. Now, there's one more thing to know about the Rottweiler before we go, and that's what they're notorious for. We used to use these dogs back in police work back in the 80s, and one of the reasons we got away from using them was because not only did they have such tremendous bite force that they could literally crack bones in a bad guy, which is just too much damage, but the other thing is you could be searching for a murder suspect, and while you're hot on the trail, the Rottweiler's doing his thing. He's getting ready to close the gap, and butterfly.
This is a heliconius butterfly.
They have a little bit of ADD, folks, so you could be working with them and something in the distance or maybe a butterfly goes overhead. They'll stop what they're doing, disengage from you to try to take a bite out of the butterfly or chase it. So don't be upset while you're training your Rottweiler. They just disengage from you to chase after a butterfly. You know what's nuts is that there's actually trainers out there charging thousands upon thousands of dollars offering zero guarantee on the reliability or performance of your dog after the training. That's not what we do here at American Standard Dog Training and DIYcanine.com, where we have a 100% money back guarantee. You know why? Because our training works, and because of that we're able to offer that guarantee. So if you're interested in finding out more, highly suggest you check us out, DIYcanine.com, where we guarantee we will help you train your dog to be the best that it can be. Let's talk about exercise with the Rottweiler. Good news is they're not as buck wild crazy as a Belgian Malinois. Bad news is they're not quite as lazy as, say, an English Bulldog that can't breathe on its way back from the mailbox. So they do require some exercise, but look, a typical 15 or 20-minute walk twice a day will do you and your dog some good. Now, the Rottweilers are prone to obesity because they have a high food drive, so don't overfeed them. And if you do feed them a nice, healthy diet, get them outside and work them, play fetch with them, let her run them around in your backyard. They don't make the best apartment dogs because they'd like to roam around. Could they do it? Yes, just gonna require more work for them. Get them outside, a little bit more exercise. So that's the good news. Also, keep in mind with that black coat, they are wearing a black summer coat no matter what time of year it is. So if you're outside with your white t-shirt on or a tank top showing off those guns, they are wearing a black coat and are cooking. So they do cook a little faster in the sun because of that black coat, so be aware of that. And they're gonna require that extra bit of water. But also, because of that big barrel chest, we gotta watch out for bloat, as with any large dog. So if they're outside running around, be mindful of when did they eat last, when did they drink last, and don't let that stomach flip. Typical serving for a Rottweiler is 1 pill every 4 hours until the flatulence goes away. You heard that, Thor? We're gonna have to stock up on those. Check it out, folks. The health problems with Rottweilers, let's talk about it. As with any typical large breed dog, we're gonna have those typical health problems, including hip and elbow dysplasia and bloat. So we gotta watch out for those. Also though, with the Rottweiler, congenital heart issues could be present in the breed. Also some issues with their eyes, such as cataracts. And we just wanna be checking in with those breeders. Make sure they're doing those health tests to rule as much of that out as possible. One more thing that Rottweilers are known for is their obesity. We've talked about it already. Just keep an eye on that. They love to eat, as somebody else I know does too. With plenty of healthy exercise and monitoring what they take in, we can avoid those obesity problems, which can lead to all other problems and exacerbate all the other issues I said earlier. Other than that though, generally a healthy breed. All right, now let's talk about the grooming requirements of the Rottweiler. Here's the good news, folks, not too bad. Considered moderate shedders, they don't shed too much and they don't really require trips to the groomers because there's nothing really to cut or groom. You just need maybe that bath once a month or so. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to dry that skin out. And if you can brush them 2 or 3 times a week, you're going to be pretty set. Other than that, just general routine care and maintenance that any dog needs. Clean their ears, make sure there's no gunk in their eyes, brush their teeth, make sure they wash their hands before you put them to bed. And now it's time for the dog score. With a total of 10 categories, total points of 10 in each, we could have up to 100 points. Let's break it down, starting with the first category, practicality. Because they are so large, they're so bulky, they're heavy, and they're also appearing on those breed ban lists here, there, and everywhere, only a 6 out of 10. Moving on to the next category of temperament. They can come in a wide range of temperaments, meaning super friendly all the way up to super protective and everything in between. And for that, we give them a 7 out of 10. Moving on to the workability category. This is a category they suffer the most, and mostly again because of their size, their bulk, that black coat, which makes them cook out in the sun. You just can't work them as long as you'd like. And for that, they only get a 5 out of 10. Moving on to the family score, a very important score. Because they're not a Labrador, because they're not a Golden Retriever, because you can't necessarily trust your 6 or 7-year-old kid to take the dog right outside off leash when the ice cream truck pulls up, they don't get a 9 out of 10, they don't get a 10 out of 10, but they do get an 8 out of 10. And then the next category where they shine, protection, baby. When properly trained and properly socialized, these dogs can know friend from foe and be definitely a hard-ass protector of the family. And for that, we give them an 8 out of 10. Now, why not a 9 or 10 out of 10? They can also be very friendly. They don't have that natural pre-installed from the factory 100% guarantee that without training, they're gonna handle business. It's like a 50-50 whether you get a face licker or an ass biter. Moving on to the category of exercise. They score pretty good here because they don't need a ton of exercise like a Malinois, but they're also not completely lazy, again, like an English Bulldog, which needs no exercise whatsoever. And for that, we give them a 7 out of 10. Moving on to the category of grooming. They don't really need to go to the groomers. You could just wash them off with a hose and some shampoo, you'll be pretty good. They also don't drool too much. They don't shed too much. Generally pretty easy to take care of. And for that, an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the category of health. They're pretty robust, they're pretty hardy, but because they're such a large breed, they're gonna have that elbow and hip dysplasia. We talked about it. They got that congenital heart defect potentially, and they also could have that obesity problem. And for that, we had to knock them down a few points, 7 out of 10. Moving on to the trainability category, another category where the Rottweiler shines. These are very smart dogs, highly trainable, can excel in pretty much anything you want to do with them. Service dog, cuddling on the couch, protection sports, playing frisbee, obedience, you name it, you can do it with the Rottweiler. And for that, they get an 8 out of 10. But once again, why not a 9 or a 10 out of 10? It's not a Belgian Malinois, it's not a working line German Shepherd, only an 8 out of 10. But final category, X Factor, baby. Now this is solely up to us, me and Spider behind the camera. It's hard to say, baby, but look, the Rottweiler is the Rottweiler. When you tell someone I own a Rottweiler, they go, oh. When you see one walking down the street, you go, damn, that's a Rottweiler, especially if we're talking about a big imposing one with great genetics, big old blockhead. You just can't mistake it. And yet at the same time, even though it's imposing, even though it's a badass, it can be amazing with the family. And for that, we give it a solid 8 out of 10. Now that gives it a total score of 72 out of 100, which is tied for second place in our current running of all the dog breeds we have done to date. There's only one dog so far that outshines it. My personal favorite, the Cane Corso. I know I'm biased, but guess what? I make the scores up. If you want to make your own scores up, start your own YouTube channel. I'll subscribe and watch, and we'll see how it shapes out. All right, folks, we're checking out, but I highly recommend you check out our other videos in our playlist available right here somewhere. You can check out some other cool breeds and find out, is this breed or other breeds right for you and your family? We'll see you there.